My name is Richard Scott. I'm a GP in Margate on the coast of Kent, and I'm a Christian GP, so I share my faith with patients where relevant and where I can. In 2010 I had a General Medical Council case in relation to sharing faith with the patient, which the GMC claimed that I'd harassed a vulnerable patient, whereas my intention was to help someone who was very needy from an angle that maybe hadn't been approached before. Unsurprisingly, they found me guilty and gave me a 5-year warning, effectively a yellow card for 5 years, which then ceased in June 2017. Then in June 2019, this year, I heard from the General Medical Council again, following a radio interview I did on Radio 4 in January, where I talked about still sharing faith with patients and praying with patients. Then discovered 5 months later that some anonymous complainant had complained, having listened to my Radio 4 interview, they complained to the National Secular Society, who in turn clearly didn't like what they'd heard, remembered me back from 2010 and complained to the General Medical Council. Here is the letter I've received from the General Medical Council, and I received this in early June. The GMC had received an email from the National Secular Society on 24th of May 2019, registering their concerns about myself. In their complaint, the NSS stated that during a BBC Radio 4 show entitled The Battles That Won Our Freedoms, broadcast on 9th January 2019, Dr. Scott made it clear that he is ignoring the warning from the GMC that preaching to patients is in direct conflict with paragraph 19 of the GMC's supplementary guidance, personal beliefs and medical practice, and paragraph 33 of good medical practice. First of all, I was amazed that such a quite honestly ridiculous complaint could be taken seriously by the GMC. Some people might argue the General Medical Council had to investigate the case, having received a complaint from the National Secular Society. I don't buy that at all. This was a choice to do so. They should have thrown it out right from the beginning. Number one, because what was stated was quite wrong again, that I'd done nothing medical. That was simply not true. Number two, the complainant was anonymous. You must be able to face your complainant in English law. And number three, it also involved a second medical regulatory body called NHS England, who can severely sanction doctors. So I now have two medical organisations, regulatory organisations, on my case. I wrote to them both, stating that in my view this was poor, vexatious, unnecessary, and giving them a chance to walk away. They declined to do so at that stage. So having sent my information in July, I then waited and only heard at the end of November from the GMC that they decided there was actually no case to answer. The GMC, they said this: there is no first-hand account or complaint from any patient about Dr. Scott's practice. The NSS sent an anonymous hearsay account about how Dr. Scott expressed his religious beliefs to a highly vulnerable patient. This is insufficient to prove that Dr. Scott practiced in breach of the guidance. Last paragraph, the absence of evidence that Dr. Scott imposed his personal beliefs on a patient in breach of the GMC's guidance leads us to conclude that the realistic prospect test is not met on the evidence. A warning would be inappropriate and the case is closed with no further action. In addition to saying that they've decided to conclude the case with no further action, they said, "We do understand that this type of inquiry is stressful. I am grateful for your help in putting together all the information the case examiners need to make their decision." And this is a classic line from the GMC. They'll make a statement that this is stressful, a one line. Now, it wasn't too bad for me, but other people can be extremely stressed by a GMC case. There have been several cases where doctors have killed themselves as a result of a GMC case. So the GMC will write a line like that and then pour on stress after stress after stress. The irritation I felt, I wasn't really stressed this time because I've been through this before, but the irritation I feel is we now have a generation of young doctors who are so scared to open their mouth for Jesus in case the National Secular Society, the General Medical Council, NHS England, or anybody else, British Humanist Association, complains, and would rather they didn't get a complaint because it can be very stressful. So this is the climate we're now in, and we really must stand up against these quite often malignant forces that are not helping our doctors and students and nurses, even more so, share their faith to people at times when we know it helps. Having had no sanction applied at all, my practice remains unchanged. to be honest, even after my first case, it made no difference to me whatsoever, because in no way did the GMC say you can't talk to patients about faith, you can't pray with patients. That was never part of their remit. What they said was that if you have another problem, if you have another complaint, then you'll be hearing from us again. In this situation, I've got no warning, there's no sanctions, no yellow card, no nothing. So I carry on as before, but once again with my eyes open to the climate in which we live. We have to remember, each one of us, when we come to the pearly gates, who opens the door? It's not the General Medical Council, it's not the Nursing and Midwifery Council, it's not Ofsted, the teachers, it's not any of these regulatory bodies. They're behind you in the queue. It's Jesus Christ.